Welcome again to Storytime with Dan Booker. Today we're going to continue on with Soleman, and today's is let's see. Last time we did Big Straw Strikes. Today is a slippery slipper slip up. Madame Pompadour opened the long closet which held her collection of shoes. Walking beside the well-lit shelf, she stroked the shoes and slippers and contemplated her choice for today's outing. It was going to be a warm and fine day. She had a great deal of walking to do and would need something extra comfortable. Inspiration took hold, and she went to the shelf unit which contained her slippers. There was one pair that would be perfect, a pair of silver-trimmed, fur-lined, rubber-soled, soft leather slippers. They were elegant enough to be worn with the ensemble she had set aside for today. These slippers were held in the safest place she could think of, the top shelf where nothing could get at them. Eagerly, she reached up to the top shelf that was a bit higher than her head. Her hand searched for the familiar feel of the slippers, but felt nothing. Perturbed at not finding them immediately, she pouted and dragged over a bench. Stepping up, she stood balanced precariously on the padded seat, precarious because the shelf had a tendency to tilt backwards whenever she leaned against it. Peering over the top, she was becoming upset that the footwear she desperately wanted was not there. She was certain that she had replaced them exactly in the same location as always. Someone must have stolen them. Her best slippers, her most expensive pair, and the one she loved the most were gone. This was not the first time this had happened either. She had bought pair after pair when the ones before came up missing. Now this pair also had been taken. She stomped her foot and leapt off the chair. A thief was at work stealing her most expensive slippers, and it was time to put an end to their crimes. There was only one thing to do, and that was to call the police. Luckily, she was an acquaintance of the police commissioner. "Hello, Commissioner Wellington here. How may I help you?" Recognizing her dulcet tones, he changed from official to friendlier voice. "Mrs. Pompadour, or rather Ms. Pompadour, how nice to hear from you again. You want me to send someone around? Something of great value has been taken. What exactly has been taken?" "A slipper?" "Oh, a pair of slippers." Commissioner placed his head in his hands. The things his rich acquaintances called him for were past belief. He was going to tell her that this was not something he could send a person out on when he remembered Soleman. The chief of police set great store by Soleman, and this would be a perfect opportunity to use this quote-unquote fake detective. As far as he was concerned, the Soleman was a bad joke. Still, it would do no harm. His friend would be placated. The force would not be distracted from their more important duties. Further, the chief might realize that using unofficial people for police duties was not going to cut it. "I have just the people, and they should be there within the next half hour." Calling his chief of police, he had him to make his voice sound as if he took this as a serious case, serious enough to use a chief specialist. His tone was solemn and held deep concern. "Chief, I just got off the phone with Ms. Pompadour. She's panicking because a pair of expensive shoes have been stolen. I think this might be a good time to send out that Soleman you consider so good at these things." "Yes, this should be right up his alley. You'll call them?" "Thank you. Let me know that this person should be treated with the utmost respect." Hanging up the phone, he lay back in his chair and laughed. A useless detective would be sent out on a useless call and wouldn't cost the force a thing. Shaking his head, he continued chuckling as he went back to his paperwork. Soleman was talking to the chief of police once more. "Yes, Chief, I have her address." "Yeah, of course we'll handle it carefully. Don't give it another thought. We're glad to help you anytime." He hung up the phone and turned to Flats. "To the Midnight Stiletto." Approaching the gate of the huge mansion, Soleman presented his card to the guard. The guard wasn't quite sure how to handle this strange individual before him, and he called his employer. The shriek over the earpiece could be heard by the two men in the car. He was to send them up immediately. The door was open, and Mrs. Pompadour was waiting impatiently as Soleman and Flats got out of the car. The impeccably attired men gave her a favorable impression, and she welcomed them warmly. Leading them to her closet, she explained about the missing items. After explaining the situation, she added one addendum. The slippers had to be found quickly, as she had an appointment. Those slippers were essential. She had no idea who had stolen them, but they must be found and the culprit apprehended. She added these were the 12th pair to be stolen, and she was getting fed up. Soleman asked Flats to bring him a stool or something to stand on. When Flats returned, Soleman stood above the shelf and examined the marks in the dust. Turning, he asked a couple of questions. The shelf feels a little wobbly. When you were looking for your slippers, did you lean on the shelf? She looked up and, putting her hands on her hips, indicated she had. I'm not as tall as you and had to reach way up to feel the ground. I see that from the marks of your fingers. Did you feel anything at all besides all the dust? Well, just a little pressure on my nails, but what does that matter? Someone stepped down and asked Flats to assist him to move the shelf. Ms. Pompadour was getting flustered. She looked at her watch. The two people the commissioner had sent didn't seem to know what they were doing. With the shelf pulled out, Soleman and Flats kneeled on either side and pulled slipper after slipper from behind the shelf. Ms. Pompadour was at first surprised, then shocked, and finally succumbed to a fit of laughter. All her slippers had slid to the back of the shelf when she tried to reach them. Soleman suggested that she not use the top shelf anymore and acquire another larger shelf. In the meantime, he added some shoe wedges to the rear base, and they would push the shelf closer to the wall to ensure the shelf would remain stable. At the door, she offered her thanks and kissed both men on the cheeks. When they departed, she called the commissioner and thanked him for sending his best people over to assist her. Well, you mean they actually found out who stole the slippers? He was incredulous. She giggled into the phone. Nobody stole them. Silly me had pushed them up to the back of the shelf and they fell behind. Officer Soleman and Officer Flats fixed everything so I won't have any more problems. It's so nice to have officers that know how to really do things and are real gentlemen. She sighed as she hung up the phone. She looked around the spacious room, thinking it might be worthwhile to have another robbery. All right, so that was a quick one. That one's done. Next one is the shoe on the other foot. So we'll do that in a couple of days. So until then, I look forward to seeing you again and hope you have a good day. Be good to yourself.